if you think of it, the only bottleneck Palantir has is talents. For a Tesla, you have the capacity that is determined by the Gigafactory. Once the Gigafactories are fully operative, to ramp up the production even more, you need to build another one. With Palantir, the only bottleneck is having talents that help you sell, that deploy the software, and that's it. It's all about people. So if you can attract the right people, not overpay for them like an investor, because when the bubble was very high, start the entry-level engineers asking for $500,000, that was actually hard. But right now, everything deflated. So they could attract good people at a good price. They are basically investing in talents now.
Yeah, so I guess shifting over to Palantir, I know we had a few questions about that too, but Palantir, they just got that IL6 clearance. That's huge, puts them among the only other two companies that have the IL6 clearance, those companies being the behemoths, Amazon and Microsoft. And the IL6 is a strict security and compliance standard required to process classified data for cloud-based workloads. Do you think that, is this a game changer for Palantir? Have you modeled out if you think it'll lead to a lot more government contracts?
Well, I don't think that in 1 quarter or 2 quarters, everything changes. But for sure, that is a strong signal, because as you said, Palantir shows that a tiny 16 billion company can achieve results that up to now only two behemoths of 1 trillion, actually more, almost 2 trillion achieved. Okay, that is not maybe very core focus. We can argue on that, but there is this discrepancy that at least is worth highlighting. Not a game changer in the very short term, because everything in Palantir works. Something happens, you start seeing maybe some impact in 6 months, 9 months. So for sure, it is a strong signal, not only for the government side in the US, but also from outside the US, because if you achieve the highest level of security in the US, it means that you know how to deal with very, very sensitive data. And that could help the sales in the government, also in the NATO countries, excluding the US. And not only actually, because also for the commercial side, we can argue that some companies don't want to deal with a company that deals with sensitive data. But on the other side, it means, hey, when we talk about cybersecurity, control on data, these guys know what we're talking about. So I think that is a strong signal. Is not that automatically generates revenues, because to generate revenues, you don't sell the certification. You need to access to projects, contracts that require that standard, which means that potentially huge contracts could be achieved when sometimes the army has $15-20 billion contracts, like Microsoft gained a 15 billion contract last month for HoloLens, or something huge. I mean, basically the size of Palantir. So potentially Palantir could get some huge contract just because of that. And for sure, it works as a signal for things that could come.
You got me thinking, it's funny. Yeah, that was one of the criticisms of Palantir. They handle sensitive data. People don't like the government end. People don't like that the market is limited. They won't work with Russia. They won't work with China. Well, the past years kind of showed us that ended up being a strength for them. I mean, look at they saved a lot of face. All these other companies operating in Russia to shut everything down. If China goes next, I mean, you see a company like Apple is slowly starting to hurriedly pull their operations out of China as far as production, shifting over to India. Like Starbucks having all kinds of problems over there, and obviously with these lockdowns that are seemingly unending. Maybe they were onto something, and avoiding certain markets ends up being a strength for them.
Yeah, huge.
Well, and by doing that, they create a precedent that companies like Google, Microsoft, that now are, let me take the word, compromised with working with regimes, now they can't really go back because they showed the intention, and actually inside the employees don't want to work with certain level of projects with a army and so on. For instance, Palantir just took from Google a huge contract called the Project Maven, which was very controversial because consisted in using machine learning to help drones targeting.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is really interesting stuff going on in the US, where you've got all these companies don't want to work with the US government, but they have no problem handing all the data over to the CCP. It's amazing. I mean, yeah, if globalization really starts to crumble, if another domino falls, like this really could be a huge strength for Palantir. We had a few questions from Twitter on Palantir. How is Palantir? Is it true that they're able to deploy the software to their clients in a much shorter amount of time compared with other solutions? Is that true, that it would take them, months or years, and Palantir can get it done quicker?
Well, I saw some reviews from Reddit, from Twitter, and it is actually true that for complex projects, Palantir is able to implement solutions in a much shorter amount of time. Palantir is often criticized for not being fully scalable, but the reality is that for how the kind of projects they deal with, they're not plug and play solutions. They need to solve a problem. If you could solve a problem with a simple plug and play solution, it means that it's not a real problem, right? So, for instance, I read on Reddit a very interesting comment of a guy dealing with a big project on which also Snowflake was a candidate. And the difference was Palantir, they did it in 1/4 of the time using only Palantir solutions. Snowflake was basically the contractor dealing with other software and needed to assemble everything, which means longer to deploy and more or less reliant. I think the strength of Palantir is that basically they built a toolbox able to build other toolbox for whatever need, which means every problem could be solved with their own solutions, while others tend to have thin products, meaning that or you can deal with that precise problem or the solution is not working any longer.
Yeah, and Alex Karp likes to say a lot that they're 5 years ahead of everyone else, and talking is good and all. I think that IL6 clearance, that shows you that they mean business here. Their retention rate shows you everyone's sticking with them, it seems like. What do you think though? Do we have more examples and actual use cases of how superior the tech is, how far they really are ahead of everyone else? I mean, is this something like Karp has said that it would take the world's best engineers, 5-10 years to replicate?
Well, I know it seems the easiest example and the most that is spoken about, but I think it is the essence of Palantir right now and the essence of what we will see in the future, that is Airbus. Because what Palantir achieved with Airbus in around 5-7 years is basically building this platform that connects all the planes from more than 100 airlines. That platform connects data from all the sensor data and make all the participants of the network in a better position, because if an airline has information that some parts are more prone to fail after certain usage, or maybe there is a way to make the planes more efficient, they benefit too. The fact is that also Boeing tried to do something similar with Microsoft and they failed. It means that to build the platform is not easy. Other examples that made me think is, do you remember when there was a partnership between Berkshire, Amazon, and what is JP Morgan, maybe? that disappeared. They were willing to do a huge consortium, if I remember correctly, in healthcare. Why it failed? Because both managing people, managing platforms is very difficult. What Palantir did with Airbus is actually potentially replicable, adaptable to each segment. So you don't see right now any other company building an operating system for a specific industry. What they did with Airbus, they're doing it with other companies like Merck. Merck even has two verticals, one for semiconductors, the other more in healthcare. This way, they will create a network that would help also Palantir achieve new customers. But these platforms make the benefit to all the participants of the network. And there are very difficult problems to solve because you're basically dealing with an amount of data that is just immense, and everything needs to talk each other. Right now, there is only Palantir being able to achieve that. Simple thing. I was studying deeply a company called Amadeus that works in IT airlines. Like that is the big boss, a 20 billion company, is Spanish, focused only on IT for airlines. That company never built a solution like that. But to me, it's a signal because, okay, you are specialized, you are born from airlines. This company was born from the internal departments of Lufthansa and some other airlines, born as a connector between agencies and airlines, but now is super focused on IT for airlines. This company didn't come out with a solution like Airbus, like Skywise.
In the same light, if I could jump in, Arnaldo, I sent you the tweet this week. Correct me if I'm wrong. There was a partnership between Mercedes and Microsoft.
I don't remember.
Yes, I sent it, and I believe that that's correct. But it was interesting to, I basically sent it to you because I'm saying, oh, they went with Microsoft and not Palantir, but we'll see how that plays out. That was my intent of, of bringing it to light. I said, oh, they went with Microsoft, maybe a contract that could have been given to Palantir, and we'll see how Mercedes does with that. So now we have the car. I love it that it's the car. I guess it's the car part. We'll double check, but the car part. So the Tesla competitor with the Palantir competitor teaming up and seeing what they could take on.
It would be nice because actually we know that BMW is working with Palantir. It would be nice actually to see these challenges. Also in the army sector, you see that for the Titan, you have on one side Palantir and Anduril, which is like the sister, and on the other side, the legacy contractors.
I didn't know they were working with BMW. Speaking of which, there was Ether Squared. Did he release his fourth dossier? He did a Twitter Spaces this morning. Mm-hmm. I saw he was mentioning a new dossier. He said it was concentrated specifically on Foundry. Did you check in? Did you get any news from that?
Yes, and I invite you all to check Ether Square Twitter. There are a lot of code names, meaning that these companies are having tests at least with Foundry, and from what I understood, a lot of them are already active for a long time. So since when he noticed the links are there, he then tried again and they're still active. But the pilots tend to be a couple of quarters, so let's see.
What do you think about looking at Palantir's business model? Do you see any flaws to, I think other companies like Snowflake, if I'm not mistaken, are kind of more focused more on a niche. Is that correct? Like where Palantir they're really going for the whole market. And I think if that works out, yeah, they're going to, obviously it will work out very well for them. They'll dominate. But do you see any issues there? I mean, is there a danger in not kind of maybe going one niche at a time and just trying to branch out into everything all at once?
I'm not sure that they are actually trying to get all in once. They are actually trying to get the full pie, but with a clear strategy in mind, meaning that their first goal was to start from a very close, small niche of clients that potentially could fully exploit the full potential of Foundry, meaning that the first clients were all clients that could reach more than 100 million revenues per year. If you can achieve that, and I would underline that the biggest clients right now of Salesforce don't reach that level of commitment. Like the biggest Salesforce clients, if I remember correctly, are around 50, 70 million. And the Salesforce has clients like Apple. This is a clue because Salesforce is 10 times bigger than Palantir, more or less. And it means that the Palantir solution could be that extensive that if they work and if they achieve actually the scale to have many clients, the revenue potential is just immense. But to get there, you don't start and say, okay, now everything is open. You really did try to leverage on network effects. So how you do? You start very close, very small. You work a lot with clients that could achieve that scale. And then those clients, being leaders in specific vertical sectors, would become intrinsically the promoters of Foundry for all their clients, suppliers, and so on. So getting back to Tesla, what Palantir is trying to achieve, in my opinion, is trying to leverage the network effects so that they can gradually scale with marginal effort from the sales side. Gradually, they will open the platform to reach more and more clients, also not from the huge clients only, but rather than spending efforts like Salesforce, ServiceNow, they have a huge marketing hordes of salespeople trying to sell also to the smaller clients. They try a waterfall strategy, meaning we start getting the most important clients in specific industries. If we get them, every company that is smaller, less relevant, would be easier to get because you are already referred from Ferrari, from Airbus, and so on.
Exactly.
So
Arnie, I wanted to shout out Arnie's
remarketing.
Substack. Arnie's Substack, because he did a full article on this network effects using Airbus specifically as the example. So shout out to a Substack if you want to learn a bunch of stuff.